Hello and welcome. Today's review is on the Makita BO4555 sheet sander. So this is I believe their smallest sheet sander. They have a few other sheet sander models. This is the one I have. It takes a quarter of a sheet of sandpaper. So it is a 200-watt sander, and the amount of RPMs or whatever you call them is 14,000. I'll show you. So it comes, I think you can get different models, but mine came with this sort of plastic dust container that has a paper insert inside. I'm not a really big fan of that because I would rather just have like a little cloth bag or something. But this works alright. The dust extraction isn't that great on this. Most sanders don't have very good dust extraction, but this one is okay. Kind of like, not the worst, not the best I've seen. This big dust container, if you don't push it on properly, it has a tendency to rattle off, and if you're using it vertically, it will eventually rattle off. So that is a bit annoying. The dust port is rather small, but you'd have a lot better chance putting a vacuum attachment on this than you would on some of the other sanders that I have that have like a square dust port. But most of the time I either sand outside or I just put a mask and gloves on and the dust just spews all over the place and I vacuum afterwards. It's no big deal. So the base is a 6-hole. You get your punch plate. The punch plate comes with it, which is nice. So you just put the sander in like that. You just punch the paper. I like the mechanism that holds the sandpaper on, so you just go like that, and it lifts up this at the front. And then you have one on the other side for the back. I like it that it has a spring-loaded clamp on both the front and the back, because I know some of them they just have sort of a spring-loaded clamp that is just held. The pressure is just a spring on the front, and then they have this on the back. But I like it that this one has this mechanical spring-loaded clamp on both the front and the back, and this clamp is actually pretty beefy compared to some of the other ones I've seen. So yes, it takes a quarter of a sheet of sandpaper. You can just buy standard sandpaper like that. One thing I will say, if you're buying sandpaper like this, like just standard sandpaper, is you want to get something that's half decent quality, because I was using some cheap, crappy sandpaper for the first little while I had this, and I was like having to change the sheet every 10 minutes. Whereas this, you get maybe 45 minutes of sanding before you have to change it, depending on what you're sanding. So it's definitely a good idea to get something that's at least half decent quality. So the base is a Velcro base. So you have the option of either using regular sandpaper like this, or you can use a Velcro sheet. Like that. Then you just put these up, keep them out of the way. I personally like that, and I actually recommend getting the Velcro sheets, because the Velcro sheets stick better to the bottom. There's nothing wrong with using just standard sandpaper like this, but I find that when you're using sandpaper like this, because it's just clamped at the front and back, it wiggles, so it's sitting station. Depending on how worn it is and how well you have it clamped in. You could very well be sitting there and the sandpaper be stationary and the sander just be rubbing around on the paper. Whereas the Velcro is actually stuck to the sander. So it's definitely cheaper to use standard sandpaper, but it's better to get the proper Velcro stuff. And this Makita paper actually seems to be pretty good. So I like the design, the actual structural design of this sander. It has good weight to it. It has lots of air vents in it. And one at the front, and obviously these down here. The on-off switch is nice. It's just that. The ergonomics is great on this. It fits well in your hand, and it's actually pretty nice to hold. Like the other day I was sanding with this sander, just sanding some door frames and stuff, and when I switched over to this sander, it was like there was hardly any vibrations. So this sander is a lot easier to hold than some of the other sanders, and it works really well. And part of how good it works actually does have to do with how well you can hold the thing. And this thing made so much vibration that you can barely hold it, whereas this is so smooth that it almost has no vibration. So it is definitely a lot smoother than even some of the random orbit palm sanders and stuff. And it's not too loud either. It's pretty quiet. Like, obviously you still need to wear earplugs, but it's quiet enough. So I also like the shell design on here, because you see at the base, this is all one piece, and then to get at anything inside you just have these 3 screws in the top. I think that should be how all sanders are designed. None of the where you just have the 2 clamshells together business. I much prefer having the one solid one cast piece, and then just having the top put on it. That, if you ask me, is a much better design. So you do have over molding on the top, and even when you're not using it, it feels quite comfortable in your hand. So the cord is a nice cord. It's not too thick. It's the nice rubber type, not the cheap hard plastic type. It has a nice plug on the end. So the cord is a nice cord. The only thing is it could have been a little longer, because that's how much cord you have, and it's enough, but it could have been longer, because sometimes, most of the time, you're using this like you're having to drag your connection around as you're sanding, or as you're if you're sanding up high, you're definitely going to have this in the air. So it could have been longer, and I'm sure you could put a longer cord on it if you wanted, but I can't be bothered to do that. So yeah, nice sander. It wasn't that expensive either, actually, compared to like some of the other ones, like the DeWalt and I think I also looked at maybe the Bosch. This was the cheapest. Now, it doesn't have some of the bells and whistles that other sanders have on it, but personally, it's a sheet sander. It just needs to vibrate a piece of sandpaper and take wood off and paint off. So it's a good sander. And one of the advantages of one of these square sanders over the round sanders is that you can get into the corners and do the corners. And also, because of the design, I find that you're more inclined to keep it flat on the base, whereas the palm sanders, you're quite often going like that, which destroys the base. But the sheet sander works well even if you're just using it flat. So I definitely wouldn't say that it replaces a palm sander, but I kind of say that if you're doing any amount of woodworking, having both one of these quarter sheet sanders and one of the random orbit palm sanders in your toolkit is a good idea. So back to the build quality for a minute. For this size of tool, it does weigh quite a bit, which means that there's a lot of material in there, which is good. And like, this is pretty thick, and it is held in here and with this screw, and they even have this nice little tab on it to make it easier to lock them. The base is a good, nice base, and if you wear this Velcro out, you can probably, in fact I know that you can buy a new base for this sander. I think it's just held on with these 4 screws, so it'd be pretty easy to change. And it looks like it has a aluminum or steel backing rather than just a plastic backing, which is good. And it's 6 holes, like I said. So yeah, overall I'd say that this one is built pretty well. It's built really well. Now I don't have any other sheet sanders this size, but I do have quite a few other sanders, and I have experience with other sanders. I have experience with some of the cheaper sheet sanders, and this one is built really well compared to those. So I'm really happy with this sander, and I have been using it for over a year now. It's taken me a while to do the review just because I've had a lot of tools to review, and also I like to wait a while before I review stuff, just so that I know that I have a good feel for the tool and I can actually review it rather than just talking about my first thoughts on it. So yeah, nice sander, and it fits well in your hand. It's not really a two-hand machine, but it's fine for doing one hand. And mine just came in a cardboard box. I'm not sure if you can buy these in a case, but I did make a case for this one, and I'll show you that in a minute. So I bought a Makita Mac Pack. This was obviously just surplus Mac Packs because it has the sticker of a kit that I did not buy on it. So I bought this Mac Pack. I think it is the size 3 Mac Pack. And the Mac Packs are actually quite nice because they are square pretty much inside, unlike some of them which have like rounded corners and stuff. So I built this plywood frame for inside, and then I built a frame to go around the sheet sander, and I put a piece of plywood in the bottom of the sheet sander just so that I'm not scratching up the base of the case. And then this spot over here is for my router and my router bits. I was going to show this during the router review, but I forgot, so I'm showing it now. And the sheet sander just fits in this corner. Then I have my wrenches and guides, and sandpaper is in the edge here. So this works really well. The plywood does add a bit of weight to it, but it's only 10 mils, so it's not that much weight, and also these tools aren't that heavy, so it is kind of heavy, but it's still less than any of the materials that I am normally carrying around, so it's fine. But these boxes are supposed to be stacking, and really I don't think I'd want to stack them just because they'd be too heavy that way, excuse me. But yeah, you can stack them for transportation, or if you have a bunch of light stuff in them. But yeah, I do like these boxes. I'll make a review on these boxes at some point because I have quite a few of them. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.